Okay, we will get started. Tonight's class is a slow flow, so perfect for nights in the winter when you just want to roll around on the floor and not do a whole lot. So we'll get started. If you've got your block nearby, we will use that. If you don't have one, you could do without, but if one is close enough to run and grab it, go ahead and do that. We'll start by just pressing into the soles of the feet, lifting the hips up off the floor and sliding that block underneath the sacrum. So the flesh of the glutes is still mostly off the block, but you feel some support there as well. And we'll just take a couple breaths here, settling in. Maybe you've had a busy day, or you have a busy week ahead, or it's the middle of the week, whatever you've got going on. Taking a couple breaths to just try to drop in to the present moment, get that wind down before heading off to bed or off to watch Netflix after this. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Our focus for tonight's class will be noticing the difference between movement within the hip joint. So that's, think of the thigh bone where that top of that ball meets the socket that it rolls within. So that's movement within the hip, but we also have movement of the pelvis. So that bowl of the pelvis that surrounds the pelvis, that can move as well. So we often talk about, or I talk about, the idea of an anterior tipped pelvis and how we don't want that, but that doesn't mean we don't want movement in the pelvis. So we just need to be mindful of when we're moving the pelvis versus when we're moving in the hip, because a neutral pelvis, which in this case where we're kind of resting on the block right now, our pelvis is in neutral. Having a neutral pelvis allows us to have the most range of motion within the hip joint. And so as we think about mobilizing the joints of the body and having that soft tissue flexibility or adaptability, it's important to make sure the structure surrounding it, in this case the pelvis, is stable and where it needs to be. From here, just draw the left knee in towards the chest. So the left leg is off the floor. And you can bring your left fingers into that left hip crease and just press a little bit more there and try to drive that femur, the thigh bone, deeper into the hip crease. So we'll notice we can move our legs, we can bring our knee closer to our chest while still keeping our pelvis in that neutral position. This is movement within the hip joint. In this case, it's called hip flexion. But now just allow the pelvis to tip ever so slightly and see how that brings the knee closer to the chest. So this isn't a bad thing to do, but it's something to be mindful of, in that our body can cheat to try to get what we perceive as more range of motion, but in reality, you're just using different muscles or different movements to overcome the fact that maybe you have limited hip flexion or different joint mobility. Cross the left ankle over the right thigh and just allow that left knee to open up to the left. Feeling a slight stretch on the outside of that left hip. And keeping the figure 4 cross of that left leg, reach the right heel up towards the ceiling. So you're just stretching that right leg up straight. We're still on the block. And just breathing here. And bringing that right sole of the foot back down to the floor, uncrossing the left ankle, and then switching sides. So first, just allow that left sole of the foot to be on the floor, and without tipping the pelvis, draw the right knee in towards the chest. You can bring your right fingertips into that right hip crease and just imagine stuffing that femur bone deeper into the hip crease. You can check in with your breath tonight and find whatever breathing form feels good for you. So maybe you just want to breathe through the nose, just breathe normally, not really thinking about it. Maybe some deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. It's a little bit more relaxing and helpful for a slow practice. You can also come into, it's called Ujjayi breath or ocean breathing in yoga, which is you restrict the back of the throat and kind of make that sound, which is calming at times to the mind and the body. So you can breathe in through the nose or the mouth and breathe out. Cross that right ankle over the left thigh and allow the right knee to just fall open to the right. Then lift that left heel up off the floor and extend the right leg towards, the left leg towards the ceiling. And then bringing that left foot back down, uncrossing the right. Press into the feet, lift up off the block, and then remove it from underneath you. You can lower all the way back down. And as you find the floor, you'll notice here that with your sacrum on the floor, there's still that space with where the low back isn't quite touching the floor. It's the natural curve of the spine. So we'll leave that where it is. Don't worry about pressing to flatten out the curve. It's just part of the spine. It's where it natural is. That's part of neutral for the spine. But just take notice of that. And then bring your block in between your thighs up next to your pubic bone. I like it the thinnest way, but the medium way might be more comfortable depending on how your hips are designed. And that has nothing to do with flesh. That is literally all bones of the hips that I'm talking about. So we'll bring the thighs in nice and close so you're squeezing the block and hugging it. That's helping activate the muscles of the inner thighs and also of the pelvic floor, which we want to be nice and strong. And then we'll lift the legs up straight with the feet coming up towards the ceiling. And with our shoulders still on the ground, first we're just going to do some internal and external rotation of the thigh. So imagine that thigh bone rotating within the hip crease. The toes go out, the heels come in, that's external rotation, and then go the opposite way where the kind of like bow-legged and the toes come in and the heels go out. And just take that a couple times, really moving from that hip joint. You're rotating the top of the thigh bone within it, and it's pretty challenging. You might feel some shaking of the muscles if you're really targeting that area. Our bodies naturally have more range of motion and external rotation, so that's probably a little bit easier than the internal. And then come back to neutral. So that was movement in the hips. Now you can just let the arms kind of fall to the side, and you're going to hike up that left hip so that you're shortening the left side body. Sorry, I'm pointing to my right, but I mean my left. So you're just going to swivel the pelvis so that the left leg comes closer to the left shoulder and the right leg goes a little bit farther away from you. And then we'll do that the other way. Come back to neutral and then just swivel the pelvis. So kind of like that steering wheel motion of I'm just swiveling the pelvis side to side. So the hips are staying stable, where the thigh bone is not really changing. It's positioned within the hip joint, but I'm swiveling the pelvis, right? Nice. So you can stay with that, or you can add coming up off the shoulders, interlacing the hands behind the head, bringing the elbows in towards the temples, taking a big breath in. Exhale, lift up off the shoulders. We'll do the same thing. And again, you can stay with the shoulders on the floor, but we'll start with that internal and external rotation movement within the hip. And then coming to neutral and swiveling the pelvis. If you have your arms lifted, you might find that you can't go as wild with moving the pelvis side to side, but you can still get that steering wheel motion of right leg coming in closer and then the left leg. Come back to neutral and inhale and lower. We'll do that 2 more times. Exhale, curl. And we'll start first rotating the thighs in and out. And then steering wheeling the pelvis side to side. Back to neutral, inhale and lower. 1 more time, exhale, curl. And internal and external rotation. And then coming to neutral and moving the pelvis side to side. Nice workout for the obliques here too. Back to neutral, inhale and lower. And that's enough core work for a slow flow. You can remove the block. You won't really need it for most of the rest of the practice, only if you would prefer to have it, but we'll bring the knees in nice and close to the chest. Hug the knees in. And then bring the hands, the palms on top of the kneecaps, and we'll just make small circles with the knees, massaging the sacrum into the floor. Moving nice and slow and steady as if you're stirring a pot here. And pause and go the other direction. And then coming to stillness, we'll bring those knees in nice and close to the chest again, and just allow both knees to fall over to the right. You can kind of just roll on over there, extend the right arm out towards the right, and then peel that left arm open and across the body. Just coming into a twist here. And as we move, you might notice some areas of tension. See if you can breathe into them and just relax. Especially in a position like this, just melt deeper into the floor. Coming back through center, bring the knees back into the chest again. And then allow them to fall all the way over to the left. The left arm comes out to the left and the right arm and peels open and across the body. Bring the gaze to wherever is comfortable. And then slowly you can roll all the way over to your left and come around onto all fours. So first in our quadruped, we're just going to come into cat-cow, which is a good example, again, of movement of the pelvis. So with our knees firmly planted, we're not moving within that hip joint, but as we press the floor away around the back, drop the head, you feel the bowl of the pelvis tipping and then moving in the other direction as you come in through cow. So take that at your own pace, moving nice and slow for tonight, but moving with your breath perhaps, and just bringing your attention on what the pelvis is doing around the hips as you move. Do 3 more rounds here. And after this last round, just come to find a neutral spine. We'll flip the hand so that the fingertips face back towards us and the palms of the floor are facing the front of the mat, and just get a nice little wrist stretch in here. You can put a slight bend in the elbows and then just sink the hips back to the heels as much as you can comfortably manage. And then flip the palms back where they came. And if you do have that block handy, actually grab that for this next move. We're going to bring the block so that it's sitting on the sacrum. And that's just going to give some awareness to that area of the body because we want that to be stable now. So draw the belly in towards the spine so that our spine is nice and long, our core is engaged. The back of the neck is long, the front of the face is pressing into the back of the skull. And just soften between your shoulder blades ever so slightly, just so we don't want to overly push the floor away and round between the back like we do in cat. We also don't want our shoulder blades dropping together like we do in cow. We just kind of want them comfortably sitting there. Now, we're going to do some movement within the hip. So you'll lift up that left leg, and we're just going to take circles within the hip crease. So the knee is just kind of following the motion of the hip, but we have the block on the sacrum to remind us that the pelvis is staying nice and steady. And you'll notice here that the movement is much smaller than what you might think. So if we're keeping everything steady, this becomes very challenging. And we don't have as much range of motion as what you might think if you start getting wild in the hips and letting your block tip everywhere. Pause and go the other direction with your circles. And then bring that left knee down. And we'll do the same thing on the right side. The right leg lifts, small circles. The knee is just following, and the foot is just following what's happening within the hip crease. Too small is better than too big here. And pause and go the other direction because we really want to target the right movement. This is also nice for like if you have a mirror handy or even just looking at your screen, if you can see your own little picture. You can check in with how much that block is moving and, oh, are my shoulder blades pressing too far away? Is my core still engaged? Nice to check in there. And then we'll bring that the right leg down. You can remove the block now, throw it off to the side, take the knees nice and wide, and we'll sink the hips back to the heels, child's pose. Rising up through all fours, we'll make our way to the front of the mat. Taking your time to get there, not in any rush tonight. And slowly bringing yourself up to stand. You can grab a drink, make any adjustments that you need to. Before we get moving, I'll adjust my camera here. Okay, so we'll get started with some sun cell A's. Again, just moving a little bit slower than usual. But first, let's check in with that neutral pelvis. So I use that term a lot. What I mean is that your tailbone from the back is in the same plane as your pubic bone in the front. So if you start to feel like your tailbone is tipping up and your pubic bone is pressing down, you need to tuck that tailbone underneath you so that it's pressing straight down. And that's probably where most of us live. It's a lot less common to see people, though it does happen that people are in that posterior tilt position where they really need to relax. So check in with that, and then bring your arms down by your side. Inhale, reach the arms forward and up. And as you exhale, hinge at the hips and forward fold. Right leg steps back, lower the right knee, top of the foot. Inhale, arms reach up. Wrap that right glute down towards the back of the right knee to get a deeper stretch on the front of the right hip flexor. Hands come down to the floor, and you can step back. I'm just coming into modified plank the whole time. So coming to plank on my knees and then lowering all the way. We'll bring the fingertips wide, coming off the mat. You can take the palms away from the floor. So imagining you have a cupcake underneath your palms that you don't want to crush. And then we'll lift up, coming into a wide cobra. Allow the top of the skull to just drop towards the floor. And squeeze between the shoulder blades here. And release. Hands come underneath the shoulders. Press into the hands. Rise up, downward facing dog. Right foot steps forward. Lower the left knee, top of the foot. Arms reach up. Wrap the left glute down. Hands come to the floor. Slide the back foot in, forward fold. Inhale, rise to stand. Exhale, forward fold. So as we forward fold, it's kind of like a dual thing where we're moving, our hips are staying exactly where they are, our thigh bones are staying exactly where they are rather, and we're just hinging over top of it with that pelvis. And then step the left leg back, lower the left knee, top of the foot, arms reach up here, low lunge. Hands come to the floor, slide back, modified plank or regular plank, and lower all the way. Coming to that wide fingertip cobra, top of the skull drops towards the floor, squeeze between the shoulder blades, and release. Hands underneath the shoulders, press up, downward facing dog. The left foot steps forward, lower the right knee, top of the foot comes down, arms rise up. Hands come to the floor, slide the back foot in, forward fold. Inhale, rise to stand. Exhale, forward fold. Right leg steps back, lower the right knee. We'll keep the toes tucked this time. Arms reach up. And energetically scissor those legs. So as if you can draw your right leg forward and your left foot back towards your right knee. They won't actually move. We're just engaging the muscles here. Hands come to the floor. Step back, plank or modified, and lower all the way. Inhale, we're coming just into regular cobra here. Shoulder blades draw down the back. Exhale, release. Press into the hands, downward facing dog. Right foot steps forward, lower the left knee, toes stay tucked, arms lift, and we scissor those legs again. Hands come to the floor, slide the back foot in, forward fold, spine is nice and long. Inhale, rise to stand. Use your glutes as you lift up. Exhale, hinge at the hips, forward fold. Set that left leg back, lower the left knee, toes stay tucked. Right arm reaches up alongside the right ear. Left hand comes to the sacrum and pause there. Finding more length on that right side body. Hand comes to the floor, step back, modified plank or regular plank, and lower. Inhale for cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. Left foot steps forward, lower the right knee. Left arm comes alongside the left ear. Right arm comes to the top of the sacrum. Same things as we've been doing before. The right glute wraps down to the back of the right knee, and we energetically scissor the legs. Both hands come to the floor. Slide that back foot in as you forward fold. Inhale, rise to stand. Exhale, forward fold. We're coming into our first sequence. Step that right leg back. We'll do the same way we started before, coming into that low lunge. Both arms lift. And then swivel this right foot so that it's coming behind the left leg. And then bring the left forearm to the left thigh and just reach the right arm over the right ear. You can allow the left ear to drop towards the left shoulder. Breathing into the right side body here. And then reaching that right arm up towards the ceiling and down towards the right. We're just cartwheeling it down, keeping the legs exactly as they are, and then lifting the left arm over the left ear. So I've got my right knee down. My right foot is behind me. I'm just getting a different side body stretch. Again, in this case, the right ear drops towards the right shoulder. Keep turning towards the back of the mat and bring the left hand down next to the right, and we're coming back into quadruped facing the back of the mat. We'll do a couple rounds of cat-cow here. Pressing the floor away, moving between the shoulder blades and allowing that pelvis to just naturally move as those thigh bones stay fixed in one position. Last time, let's end in cat with our hands pressed into the floor, shoulders rounded, tuck the toes, lift the hips back and up, downward facing dog. Then inhale, reach the right leg back and up, bend the right knee, and just like we did in our quadruped in the beginning of class, we're going to take some circles with that right hip, moving down, out to the side, and back up, down, out to the side, and back up. You might notice you have a little bit more range of motion in this position compared to quadruped. Still, the knee and the foot are just following what's happening closest to the body. And go the other direction, down, up, and out to the side. Last time, we'll step that right foot forward, about halfway on the mat, coming into a right leg standing L, drawing the chest forward through the arms, and then rising to stand, bring that left knee into the chest with you. Pause there for a second. So we're going to do a movement here. We're going to practice that internal and external rotation of the left hip. So your left knee is towards the chest. You'll allow that leg to come down, externally rotate so that the left knee is pointing out to the left, and then like that, bring the left knee up to the chest. Bring it back down, turn the side neutral, next left knee to the chest. So down and up, down and front. Pelvis is staying steady. You're just externally rotating and coming back to neutral, and we're flexing in the hip. Nice, good work. Do that a couple more times. Good. Hips. So when I say hips, I mean those two bony hip points are not moving. You're really just moving that left leg. Beautiful. Okay, last time we're going to end with it out to the side and coming into a tree pose on the left leg. The left foot can rest above the knee or below the knee or at the ankle, whatever meets your fancy tonight. And you can bring the arms to wherever is comfortable. So maybe in front of the chest, maybe up towards the ceiling. And then we'll come down, both feet land, and we'll come into the second side of that first sequence. Inhale, reach the arms forward and up. Exhale, hinge at the hips, forward fold. Step the left leg back this time, lower the left knee, swivel so that the left foot comes behind the right leg, and we'll bring the right forearm to the right thigh, left arm alongside the left ear. This is kind of like a gate pose, is what it's called. Big breath in as you cartwheel that left hand towards the front of the mat. Legs stay as they are, but the right arm comes over the right ear. And then allow that right hand to turn your body towards the front of the mat as you come back into a quadruped and take a few rounds of cat-cow. Next time you round the back, pause there, tuck the toes, and lift the hips straight back and up, coming into a down dog. Inhale the left leg straight back and up, then bend that left knee, just like you did in quadruped, circled from the hip. Moving in one direction, down, out to the side, and back up. Down, out to the side, and back up. Taking that movement in the other direction, out to the side, down and around. Last time, step that left foot forward, standing L, chest draws through the arms, bend that left knee as much as you need to get the hands firmly planted on the floor. And then rise to stand, bringing the right knee into the chest this time. Lower the right leg, externally rotate, and bring the right leg up to the chest, but externally rotate it back down, and bring it forward, down, out to the side. I like to imagine a little puppet strings here, going up, down, turn, and around. Nothing else is moving though. Few more. After this next one, we'll pause, coming into a tree pose. Right leg can be above the knee, below the knee, or at the ankle. You can bring the hands to wherever feels best for you. And then bringing that right leg down next to the left and coming back to the top of your mat. You can grab a drink, take any adjustments. It's very, very exhausting class, so you might need some water to hydrate. Just kidding. Okay, coming back to the front of the mat, we're going to do one more sequence, and then I think we'll just end with some nice long stretches. Start with a high crescent lunge. You can just bring your hands to your hips, step the right leg back, coming into that high crescent, putting a bend in the back knee and making sure your pelvis is underneath your shoulders. Arms reach up towards the ceiling. Then bringing the hands back to the hips, we'll hinge forward, shifting the weight onto that left leg, coming into an airplane. Steering wheel that right hip back down so that it's in line with the left, not popping open towards the right. Spine is nice and long. You're reaching out from the crown of the head all the way back through that right heel. And then bring that right foot back down behind you. Open up into a warrior two with that left leg forward. Take a big breath in. Exhale, reverse. Take a big breath in. Exhale, warrior variation, left forearm to left thigh. Let's take that a couple times, just move at your own pace. Reversing. And coming forward. Last time, next time after you reverse, reach it back and up. Cartwheel the hands down, or cartwheel the right hand down rather, underneath the right shoulder, coming into a twisted crescent. The left arm reaches up towards the ceiling. Release the right ear to the right shoulder. Right knee comes underneath the right hip, and we're coming back into a modified side plank. You can stay here with the left leg, left leg on the ground, or you can bring the left hand onto the left hip, lift the left leg up off of the floor. We keep the pelvis where it is, and we just come back into that hip flexion where we're drawing the knee in towards the chest and coming back out. in and out. So this is just like we were doing in our supported bridge in the beginning of class. It's a little bit more active now, but it's just hip flexion. We're not tipping the pelvis here to help draw the knee in anymore. Last time, we'll end with our left knee in towards the chest. Step that left foot toward the front of the mat as you turn towards the right, facing sideways on your mat and coming into some side lunges. Moving side to side, you can keep both hands on the floor, bring them to the ankles. You can stay up a little higher, whatever feels good tonight. Sinking the weight back into the hips, trying to keep the entire soles of the feet on the floor as you move side to side. And then turning all the way to the back of the mat, the hands plant, and we'll step back for a downward facing dog. Keep the toes where they are, and we're just going to swivel the heels, and then of course the hips will follow side to side. So both heels go towards the left, and then both heels go towards the right. And I guess the toes tend to turn too. So heels to the left, toes to the right, heels to the right, toes to the left. Moving the whole pelvis. This is a small movement, but it's really nice for the low back and any tissues in that back line of the body that can get very restrictive from a number of things. Having an interior tipped pelvis is one thing that does not help. Moving side to side, you can also add a bend in the knees, so kind of like a butt back to the heels as you go side to side. That'll turn up the stretch on the side body. That's nice to do too. Coming back to neutral and stillness, walk the hands back towards the feet, coming into a happy squat. So the soles of the feet come down, the hips draw back, and we're just allowing our chest to rest here on our thighs. Fingertips are out in front, so you still keep some length in the spine here. Then bring the hands to the hips as you rise to stand. Right knee comes into chest, and just step the foot down. Left knee to the chest, step it down. Right knee to chest, step it down. And we've got one more side to do. So from this side, trying to think, we're going to step back with the left leg coming into a high crescent lunge with the right leg forward. Arms can come up. Hands come to the hips, hinge forward, coming into an airplane. Reaching out long from the crown of the head all the way back through that left heel. That left foot comes down and we open up warrior two, facing the back with the right leg forward. Big breath in. Exhale, reverse. Big breath in. Exhale, warrior variation. Let's take that one more time. Inhale. Exhale. Reach it back and up. Reverse. And warrior variation. One more time, reaching it back and up. And then cartwheeling that left hand down underneath the left shoulder, opening up into a twisted crescent. Keep those hips lifted exactly as they were, so we're not sinking down into the floor. We're keeping some buoyancy within the hips. Left knee comes underneath left leg. I feel like we already did, no, we didn't do this side. Okay. And then the right leg can stay on the floor. You can stay in modified side plank here, or lift the right leg straight back. Pelvis stays exactly as it is, and you just flex at the hip and back out. Flex and out. Do that a few more times. It is not easy. It looks like it would be super easy, but if you're really stabilizing with the core and that left glute is on and you're just flexing in the hip, this is a lot of work. Last time we'll end with the knee towards the chest and then step that right foot forward, turn sideways on the mat, side lunges. You're welcome to add a twist here, reaching one arm up to the ceiling and then the other as you move side to side. And this time we'll turn all the way back to the front of the mat. Step back for downward facing dog, just like you did before. Swivel the heels to the left, toes to the right, heels to the right, toes to the left. You can add that little butt to the heels type move as you sit the hips back. And we'll just walk the hands back towards the feet. Happy squat. Arms extended nice and long. Spine is nice and long. And we're hinging at the hips here. And from here, rather than coming to the front of the mat, we're just going to make our way down towards the floor. And grab your block if you've got it nearby. Let me just adjust this one more time. All right, so we're going to come into a variation of pigeon using the block. You can just bring your right shin parallel to the front of the mat or whatever way you're facing. Bring the block on the medium height in front of that right shin, and then bring the left leg, the left shin calf on top of the block. So this is more of like a double pigeon, if you're familiar with that term. But we'll sit up nice and tall here, and then you can start to hinge forward, bringing the chest closer to that left shin. But only do it to the extent that you're not rounding the back. So if you're rounding the back to lay down here, that's not getting us to goal. We want a nice long spine. We're hinging at the hip. And you should feel this kind of underneath your left hip and glute where you're sitting. And then bringing yourself back up, and we'll switch sides. This time the left leg will come behind the block, somewhat parallel to it, and the right shin will come on top of it. And just check in, sit up nice and tall first, and then you can start to hinge forward. I don't get very far on my right side. And then we'll bring ourselves out of that. And we're coming into Shavasana. For tonight, I would encourage you to try legs up the wall if you've got a wall nearby. So it's exactly what it seems. You're going to bring your hips, your butt as close to the wall as you can, and then lay down and just bring your legs to rest on the wall. I picked an interesting spot because my torso is longer than the position that I'm laying in right now. But anyway, you just rest here with your legs up the wall. And as you're ready, you can start to bring your legs down off the wall, rolling onto one side, and slowly bring yourself back up to seated. Before moving on with the rest of your day or night. I'll stop recording.